Welcome back, my dear listeners. Today we are listening to a story that will blow your mind. His ex-wife made him raise another man's child, so he divorced his wife and sued his cousin for everything he spent raising a child that wasn't his. Let's start. It's been 4 years, and I thought I was past it. But after this Memorial Day, I'm not, and I need advice. I've been stalking these subreddits for a while, hoping that reading people's stories would help or that I could find someone with a similar situation and see how they dealt with it. However, it seems my situation is unique. So here we go. First, let me be clear. I don't care if you think this is fake. I don't care if you want to criticize or question the authenticity of what happened. I thought I was okay, that I had moved on. But after last weekend, all those emotions came rushing back, and the anger I had back then returned in full force. Even though I'm back home with my fiancé, that anger towards my ex just won't go away. I spent years in anger management dealing with what she did and the situation that unfolded, and I thought I was okay. Right now, I just turned 39. I was 18 when I met my ex, Marisol. During that time, I was involved with the Latin Kings. I had been a member since I was 13 and was always in and out of trouble. Marisol was a church girl. My grandmother dragged me to Sunday Mass, and when I saw her, it was love at first sight. I asked my cousin, who was a friend of hers, to introduce us, but he refused. He didn't want me to get involved with her, fearing I would ruin her. Have you ever met someone who made you want to become a better version of yourself? That was her. When I found out that she was going to church almost every day, I started hanging out by the steps, talking to her. I always walked her to and from church. She made me feel like I wasn't worthless. One thing led to another, and we started dating. I felt great for a year and a half. I distanced myself from the gang life, obtained my GED, became a regular churchgoer, and started thinking about the future. But then, I unintentionally got pulled back in. I was at a store and ran into someone I used to have problems with. They started running their mouths, and I tried to ignore it. I swear I did. I just let them talk, and I walked away. But then, I got stabbed in the shoulder blade, and I lost control. I beat the hell out of him. I got arrested, and suddenly, all the progress I had made to improve my life seemed to vanish. Marisol was disappointed, my grandmother kept bringing up my past mistakes, and my cousin was convinced I wouldn't change. My public defender saw me trying to better myself, and by the grace of God, got me off after a month in lockup. Despite being angry with me, Marisol visited me almost daily. A month after I got out, I found out I was going to be a father. I didn't want my child to have a dad who was dead or in jail. So, we eloped. I went to a trade school to become a mechanic and worked tirelessly for my future family. When Luna was born, it was one of the most challenging days of my life. Marisol wouldn't stop bleeding, and she went into shock. They had to perform a double hysterectomy, and she stayed in the hospital for months. Luna became my world. I wanted her to have the best life possible, to give her the world. When Marisol was released, I promised her that our daughter would have a life far better than ours. And for years, I kept the promise. I saved enough money to move us to the suburbs and became homeowners. I even became a Girl Scout leader, if you can believe that. I made sure Lumina went to a private school, taught her self-defense, and always strived to be the perfect husband. I didn't have a positive male role model in my own life because my parents weren't present, so I relied on TV dads as my role models, and mimicked their marriages. As the years went by, I owned my own garage, my cousin became a pastor, and my relationship with my wife grew stronger. I made sure to maintain my physique from my time in prison. However, Luna started hating me when she turned 13. She rejected my hugs, rolled her eyes when I told her I loved her, and ignored me when I asked about her day at school. It hurt me, and Marisol acknowledged it, saying she's just a teenager, and that I should let it pass. She assured me that Luna would come back to me. This continued for 2 years. So, for her quinceanera, I wanted to go all out and get her everything she wanted. But she remained disrespectful, and for a moment, the old me almost resurfaced to put her in her place. Instead, I went to my cousin and vented my frustrations and doubts about being a good father. He advised me to let her be and said a prayer for me. I wanted a slideshow for the father-daughter dance, but I realized I didn't have recent pictures of us together. Luna didn't want to take any. The last time I had pictures of her and me smiling together was on her 13th birthday, and those were on my daughter's broken tablet. I took that tablet to a repair shop, and I didn't care about the cost. I needed it fixed. After a day and $300, the technician fixed it, and I felt relieved. Although I knew her passcode, I never invaded her privacy. I just wanted those pictures. But when I opened the tablet and looked at the gallery, there were pictures of my little girl smiling and happy to be with me. It made me feel great. Then, instant messages appeared. It was my daughter talking to my wife. They had a lengthy conversation about how she didn't want to dance with me. It hurt, but as my wife said, she's just being a teenager. Then, Luna said something that shattered me. She texted about why she had to do the father-daughter dance with me, since I'm not her father. I felt my heart stop, got dizzy, and my mouth went dry. I needed to sit down. My wife responded by saying that I raised her, loved her, and that makes me her father. But Luna replied, stating that my cousin is her father, and she can't wait for her to turn 18, so she can tell me the truth and live with her real dad. She said she hated me and thanked God that I'm not her father. Marisol began cussing her out, saying it was a mistake for my cousin to tell her the truth 2 years ago. The more they talked, the angrier I became. My wife lied to me for 15 years, and my cousin, Dumai, knew about my concerns regarding Luna and my fears of being a bad father. Not only did my wife deceive me, but she had me raise his child. I wanted to hurt them. I felt a mix of anger, sorrow, and grief. I wanted to scream, cry, and even die, all at the same time, if that makes any sense. To prevent myself from doing anything drastic, I told Marisol that I needed to focus on work so I could pay for the quinceanera. Instead, I drove to Manhattan and found my old public defender, who was now a successful attorney in Midtown East. I was surprised that he remembered me, but apparently, I was his first case as a public defender. We sat down, and I poured my heart out to him, giving him the tablet that contained the messages. This time, Luna was conversing with my cousin, her biological father. He was urging her to give me a chance, highlighting how I had always been there for her. Luna, however, insisted that he had been there too, that they had much in common, and she even called him Pappy multiple times during their conversation. He responded by calling her his little girl. We discussed our options, and he repeatedly asked if I was sure about what I wanted to do. I nodded and expressed my desire to go full scorched earth, to expose the truth. He asked for my confirmation several times, and I followed his instructions to the letter. I secretly put my business up for sale, contacted the private school to inform them I wouldn't be paying for the next year, closed college accounts and the savings accounts I had for Luna, and prepared to list my house for sale online. No one suspected a thing. I followed his instructions meticulously, with one exception on the day of the quinceanera. The event went smoothly. The entire family was there, and Luna seemed happy and carefree. Marisol kept asking if I was okay, and I lied to her. It was incredibly difficult to deceive her, considering I had never lied to her since the day we met. During those 2 weeks, every time I kissed her or made love to her, it was challenging not to scream at her, not to hate her. She knowingly allowed me to raise another man's child and slept with my cousin, a man I considered a brother, the godfather of my child, and my confidant. Suppressing my rage was incredibly difficult, to say the least. When it was time for the father-daughter dance, I called Luna to the center of the stage. She seemed annoyed but walked over. The music started playing, and she smiled. It tore me apart to see her smiling at me. For years, I longed to see that smile again, but now, I didn't want it. As we danced, a slideshow played pictures of the two of us. Toward the end of the song, screenshots of her text messages with her mother and biological father appeared on the large screen. Needless to say, this revelation didn't bode well. Marisol looked as if she had seen a ghost, Luna continued to stare at the screen, and my cousin stared at me with fear. Marisol rushed to me, desperately trying to explain, but I told her that I had filed for divorce. I informed her that she could explain everything in court. She grabbed my arm, begging me, but I pulled back. I told her that I worked hard to give her the world, and now she doesn't deserve it. I began to walk out, but not before telling my cousin that every time I see him, I'm going to knock him out. The aftermath was harsh. Marisol and Luna were at my grandmother's apartment. Her family was shocked and disgusted with her, wanting nothing to do with her. Surprisingly, her father even apologized to me, although I never knew why he disliked me, despite turning my life around. Now, I was seen as the perfect husband and father, but just a few days prior, I was the former piece of myself. My grandmother had the audacity to tell me the story of Abraham and how he came back from battle 3 years later, finding his wife with a 1-year-old child, whom he raised as his own. She suggested I be like Abraham, so I told her to get out of my house. Marisol came a few days later, crying as soon as she saw me. She claimed it was an accident, that when I was arrested, she was so angry at me, and my cousin was there to console her. One thing led to another, and it happened only one time. She swore she had been faithful to me ever since. She was even willing to take a lie detector test to prove it. So, I asked her how long she knew Luna wasn't mine, and she started crying even more. The look on her face told me that she knew from day one. I asked her to leave. She wanted to go to counseling, telling me that I was overreacting, and that we could make it work. She claimed it was all in the past, and that I needed to get over it, emphasizing that I am Luna's father despite what happened. I allowed my temper to get the best of me. I must have repeated get over it over a dozen times at full volume while grabbing her and tossing her out the door. I called her a liar, told her I never wanted to see her face again, and made it clear that the life I had built no longer belonged to her. I shoved her out the door. A couple of weeks went by, and she kept blowing up my phone. Not once did Luna try to reach out to me. Marisol was shocked to learn that I sold my business, and even more so when she discovered I had an open house. She came in screaming, telling the viewers to get out of her house, and pleading with me to seek help. She claimed I was ruining our marriage, and had no right to sell our home, the place where we raised our child. I told her that this house is full of lies, a house where I raised another man's child, and when I sell it, I would give her half. I ordered her to get out before I called the cops. It was a bluff, as all she had to do was play the victim, and I would have been arrested. However, she complied. Shortly after this incident, my cousin came to talk to me, and I knocked him out. I dragged him outside and closed the door. I refused mediation. Marisol wanted to reconcile, but I didn't. I wanted a divorce, and my attorney filed for a fast-track divorce. In 3 months, we were at the Nassau County Courthouse. I barely spoke to anyone during that time. I had read horror stories about the court system, especially during divorce proceedings, but fortunately, I didn't experience that. I had a fair female judge. My attorney took care of everything. Marisol's lawyer initially tried to bring up my past involvement in a gang, as if it was a reason for me to be a terrible husband and father. However, my attorney quickly shut it down, and the judge reprimanded Marisol's attorney for attempting to shame someone who had turned their life around. My attorney presented all the evidence and offered a lump sum alimony payment with the pending sales of the house and business. At first, Marisol kept asking me to reconsider, but I ignored her. When she finally realized that I wouldn't budge, she reluctantly agreed. The real surprise came when child support was discussed. My attorney presented all the text messages from Luna's conversations with Marisol, showing that not only did Luna know I wasn't her biological father, but she couldn't wait to be with her real father. Luna expressed relief at no longer having to live a lie. Marisol was completely caught off guard by this revelation. Then, my attorney filed a motion to have my name removed from Luna's birth certificate, to have my last name removed as well, and to no longer be responsible for any child support, since all parties agreed that my cousin was her father. Marisol was shocked by this. She yelled at me, begging me not to do this to Luna, emphasizing that I raised her. As pathetic as it may sound right now, there were moments when I wanted to reach out and try to make it work. However, every time I read Luna's ongoing text messages to her friends, her real father and mother, I refocused on my resolve. To this day, I don't know which hurts more, being lied to by a woman I thought was the love of my life, or having a child I tried to give the world to discard me like trash. The judge remained quiet for a long while, reading page after page of the text messages. In the end, she agreed that I was not financially responsible for Luna, and my name could be removed. My attorney also filed a motion for the courts to pursue my cousin for child support, and a motion to sue him in civil court for all the money I had spent raising Luna. Private schools, dance classes, Girl Scouts, or special lessons, everything I had ever spent on that child. After my attorney explained to the judge that my cousin had committed fraud by knowingly allowing me to raise his daughter without providing any financial support or assistance, it was a long shot, but the judge agreed. I didn't bother looking at Marisol when the judge made her decision. I didn't bother listening to her as I walked out of the courthouse. I didn't care as I heard her cry, telling me that she only cheated one time and had been faithful ever since. I just didn't care anymore. A few weeks later, my ex called me, shocked that I had stopped payments for Luna's private schools and all her activities. I told her to contact her baby daddy before hanging up. Even Luna called me for the first time since this entire ordeal, crying and telling me that she had to go to a public school because they were moving back to the old neighborhood. She expressed how scary it was and how she wanted us to be a family again. I told her to go to her real father, the man she truly wanted, and yelled at her. I told her that not only had she known for years, but I had also read all the text messages, the back and forth. From her own words, she expressed gratitude that someone like me wasn't her father, even though I hadn't been involved in any wrongdoing since the day I found out I was going to be a father. After that, I hung up on her. I thought about ending it all countless times. I thought about ending my cousin, but instead, I made him pay. He had to give me $500,000. Every cent belonged to me, not a penny to my ex, because she agreed to the lump sum. I didn't care that the money came from the church. I was hurting. Shortly after, I left New York and went to Idaho, choosing a random state and city as far away from New York as possible. I opened up a new shop and bought a house, but for 2 years, I struggled with trust issues. I sought therapy and attended anger management sessions and rage rooms. It was a difficult journey until I found myself returning to church, and ironically, that's where I met my fiancée. Jocelyn is wonderful. She just turned 30 at the time, and we hit it off. I told her everything that had happened to me, explaining my trust issues. she understood. A year later, she informed me that I was going to be a father again, and insisted that we have a DNA test for my peace of mind. I had forgotten what it felt like to be happy, but when my son was born, I was overjoyed. I called my grandmother for the first time in years, and she cried tears of joy. When I told her about my son, she insisted that I come to New York so she could meet her great-grandchild. She guilt-tripped me, mentioning that she was 90 and wanted to see me one more time. Reluctantly, I agreed. We flew to New York, rented a car, and drove to Bushwick. One thing I disliked about the neighborhood was that you only needed to see one person from your past, and the whole neighborhood would know you were back. My grandmother saw my son, met my fiancée, and made a snide comment in Spanish about her being white. I nodded along politely. I had planned to spend the week doing touristy things, making it special for Jocelyn, as it was her first time in the Big Apple. However, nothing went as planned. First, my ex shouted my name from downstairs. I looked out the window and was surprised by how much weight she had gained. My grandmother, speaking in Spanish, told me to talk to her, and Jocelyn agreed. I went downstairs, and there was an awkward silence for a minute, but then the anger came rushing back like a flood. Marisol told me I looked good and mentioned that she missed me. She claimed that she had never been with another man since the divorce. I ignored her. She even had the audacity to tell me that I am a grandfather. Luna got involved with a decent guy and got pregnant at 18. Her baby daddy joined the Marines to support them, while her father wanted nothing to do with her, only paying child support and refusing to acknowledge her. He's no longer a pastor and now works at the Banco Popular 2 blocks away. Marisol then revealed that Luna named the baby after me, and I couldn't bear to look at her. Marisol wanted me to wait because Luna was on her way over, but I just walked away. I went to my grandmother's house, and I didn't have to tell Jocelyn anything, she just knew. We left in the elevator, and I explained what happened. She smiled and assured me that everything would be alright. The look on Marisol's face when we left the building, it was as if she saw Jocelyn as the other woman. Without missing a beat, Jocelyn introduced my son to Marisol, saying, "I would like you to meet his biological child." That was a surprising twist, but Jocelyn understood my pain. Marisol kept trying to stop me from leaving, insisting that Luna felt remorse, and that Jocelyn wanted me to make amends. But I was so angry. I hopped into the car, ignoring Marisol's pleas. Jocelyn suggested extending an olive branch, so I gave Marisol my number for Luna to call me. At a red light, I spotted my cousin by the country Frito stand, and I don't know what came over me. I got out of the car, ran up to him, and beat him up. Jocelyn was screaming, telling me to stop. When our eyes locked, I could see the fear. I spat on him and left. Now I'm back home, working, being a dad, and a good fiancé to a beautiful woman. Yet, when I'm alone with my thoughts, the anger comes back. Luna did text me with a picture of her smiling with her son, apologizing for what she did. However, I don't know if she's sorry because she missed me, or if she's sorry because the man she wanted to be her father wasn't the man she thought he was. I'm so confused, and I'm scared to reach out to her. I want to get past this. I want to move on. My family was everything to me. My daughter was my world. After all these years, it still hurts. It still makes me angry. But I know I need to move on. However, it's hard. I want to reach out to Luna, but I'm so scared. People are telling me to let her back in, but all I can think about are those text messages and the constant lies. I need help because my usual methods are not working. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to my channel for more. I look forward to sharing more stories with you soon. Thank you again for your support.